So we're going to focus now on donor motivation, and I'm just going to take a moment to pull up my slides. We're going to take a moment to think about donor motivation, which allows us to explore some really key questions. First of all, why do people give? You can think about this for yourself and the organizations that you give to. What motivates you to give? Are there causes that you support but don't give to? Are there some causes that you do give to that perhaps are not highest on your priority list, but perhaps you gave because someone you really care about asked you to do so? So you can think about what motivations you've had individually. You want to identify the roles that identity and values and social signaling can play in the giving process. In other words, when I say social signaling, for instance, how does giving provide an individual a way to tell the world something about themselves and about their values, about their connections to various organizations, various belief systems, and so forth within the larger world? You want to think about emotional versus rational giving. Sometimes we are compelled to give because we feel very emotional about something. There might have been an event in the world and we felt like this requires a response, and so we immediately donate money because we're having an emotional response. And that's a bit different from sitting down and rationally thinking through our strongest values and giving in a rational way. And a lot of us might do a bit of both. And so it's important to think about donor psychology and donor behavior. And before I move to the next slide, this is a nice moment to do so, to do this specifically for your organization, because there are general donors, and you can think in terms of general donor psychology, but you really want to think about what are the different types of donor psychologies that are impacting the donor behavior for your organization. As an activity, I want you to think about what we call the jobs to be done of the organization for its stakeholders. This is similar to the business model canvas in terms of how the organization delivers particular values to the customer segments. This is in some ways just a different way of thinking about it through the lens of each individual stakeholder. So individually identify the stakeholders for your organization, who benefits from your organization and how, and really think broadly about that. Maybe your organization does direct work with young people. Those would be stakeholders, but their parents would also be stakeholders, perhaps their teachers. I would certainly identify the board members themselves as stakeholders as well. So identify every stakeholder. And for each stakeholder, complete the following statement with regard to the activities aligned with the mission of the organization. So the stakeholder would say, when I do an action, I want to, and then you describe their motivation for doing the action or needing something so that I can achieve a particular outcome. Um, so when I go to school, I want to already have the math skills that I know that I need so that I can succeed at my classes and do well at the math needs in the world that I live in. That's an example for a nonprofit that might be focused on after school math tutoring. So you want to complete a similar kind of statement for each of your stakeholders. Pause the video here to engage in this jobs to be done activity. And then you're going to return to that activity for your larger group discussion. So collectively discuss the jobs to be done that you just identified. How do these jobs align with the mission of the organization? And how does your organization help stakeholders to achieve these jobs? So take some time to discuss across the different work that you did individually to come up with as many different jobs to be done statements as possible, connecting those to your mission statement. And then there are some resources for further learning. I'll mention that the Nonprofit Quarterly has a number of articles on a regular basis. It's clearly a quarterly publication that you might want to have access to, either direct access to as an organization or as a board, or at least be aware of whether or not there's a library near you that has access to the Nonprofit Quarterly. There is another reading here from the Nonprofit and Voluntary Sector Quarterly. So again, I'm just trying to highlight some of the different resources that you want to be aware of on a regular basis. A book that you might consider having access to called Strategic Management, a Stakeholder Approach. And that was written first and foremost for businesses, but businesses ultimately are organizations. I think it's very important to recognize that for-profits and nonprofits are different, but both share the overall ethos of an organization and what it means to function as an organization. And so strategic management is a critical process in both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. And then a video to watch on donor motivation called Seven Reasons People Give Money.